Polluted Wastelands is a unique map in TDS, with specialized modifiers to make enemies extra strong. It's been said to be harder than hardcore mode, but is it really? I tried to beat the map with no strategy with a fully random team, and so joining the game, these first runs didn't go incredibly well. I had no clue what to do, and with no real coordination we lost very early on. The next run was much more successful, as I brought gold scouts for early game defense, which in combination with high level teammates let us survive the early game. The zombies have a mutation modifier, which grants them more health each passing wave. While it's not so much of an issue early on, it makes late game zombies extremely tanky. As we neared wave 20, I started to realize that we were losing. Despite having multiple accelerators, we were struggling to do much DPS, and we ended up losing on wave 20, which isn't even supposed to be the hard part. At this point, I decided to experiment with my loadout a bit, trying a few different towers. The first being Pyromancer, and I quickly realized what a terrible idea that was, as since I didn't have the golden skin, the tower just wasn't very strong. So from there on, I alternated between using Ranger and Engineer. I also started to try to play a more focused game, trying to farm as heavily as possible in the early game to try get an accelerator early. I also had to balance that with placing gold scouts, depending on how much defense the team had. On wave 22, the amalgamation spawns. With 8,000 health, it's touted as extremely overpowered, but if you farm well enough to get a level 5 accelerator as it arrives, it actually goes down fairly easily. I ended up losing more runs to the rushers, which spawn only a couple waves later. They are extremely fast with pretty high HP, and if your team doesn't have multiple accelerators or other sub DPS, you will lose here. And lose I did. And then I had this run. One teammate had a golden Pyromancer, a massive upgrade over the regular variant, and it proved to be strong enough to allow everyone to farm a bit more heavily in the early game. The zombies did start to reach further and further, but thanks to an early minigunner we managed to stabilize. I focused on farming, trying to get 8 level 3 farms as quick as possible for that level 5 accelerator. The full team all had accelerators as well, and with a total of 5 placed, we were able to kill the amalgamation fairly comfortably. And we also passed the rushers without much problem. And I'd actually say things became a bit easier the longer the run went on, as you end up getting a huge amount of money. However, there was one problem with this specific run which made things very difficult. We did not have the commander tower, meant to provide a fire rate boost to everything, but we did reach the last wave, where things suddenly became a lot harder. In combination with a flood of amalgamations and abominations, there are 4 nuclear guardians with a total of 240,000 health, and of course the nuclear monster with its 1.5 million health. As the wave progressed, we painstakingly had to chip down all the spawn zombies, but when we finally had the last nuclear guardian down to only 16,000 health, it walked over a toxic cloud and healed back to full. Toxic clouds are a fun little feature which these super toxic zombies can spawn. They serve to heal the health of any zombies who walk over them, and after that heal, the guardian was able to kill us with about 30,000 health. For day 2, I knew I had to get a similar game, but with the commander tower. However, over the next 4 hours of grinding, things did not go well. I had a lot of failed starts as I joined teams with somewhat lacking towers. I had 2 more runs which did manage to reach wave 40, but neither of them had enough power to actually kill the final boss. And one run was particularly heartbreaking. We had 3 people with accelerator, we had tons of engineers, turrets, and rangers, and we killed all the buffer zombies very early and started focusing on the boss as it was still in the first loop. I used mech abilities and my teammate used Call of Arms. Things were looking close, but it seemed like we would win. However, with less than 100,000 health, the nuclear monster used its summon ability on the final loop of path, spawning 20 or so zombies with well over 50,000 total health. And with the accelerators locked onto the monster and most of our DPS near the front of the map, the zombies got through, ending the run. And I will say, this is probably the most angry I've ever been at this game. The nuclear monster has 6 attacks, 4 of which are essentially useless, 1 of which is pretty problematic, and the final one being the spawning attack, which is insanely strong. So after that loss, I took a short break, before eventually coming back for one last try. I didn't have high hopes for the run, as our start was pretty weak, with only a few damaging towers, but moving into the late game, everyone did have excels, and once again, we got to the final wave. But it was looking like we had even less DPS than before, as we killed the guardians at a much later point. I knew that if the monster used his howl ability, we would certainly lose. But as the wave continued, he continuously used his other attacks, and we kept slowly melting the health bar down, until, once again, on the 3rd loop, he used the summon ability. We had only one chance, which was to kill a boss before the spawn zombies reached our base. Accelerators lock on was actually incredibly important here, as they continued to focus down the boss, rather than all the freshly spawned zombies. The boss was down to only 5,000 HP when it walked over a toxic cloud. However, thankfully, it didn't heal at the proportion of other zombies, and as the spawn zombies rushed towards the base, we somehow managed to kill the nuclear monster, earning me the reward of 1 premium crate. So that wasn't really worth it. Please subscribe.